Some other things. Go on to the next list. We mentioned mental illness, right? I think we did. Or I know you guys hit on depression, okay, but mental illness would include depression as well. History of abuse, single young parent, a few of you mentioned that, so at higher risk. Large family and poverty. Poor impulse control and coping skills, so maybe the anger management kind of stuff sort of falls in there. And lack of support and intense family stress. Overall, to me, just stress in and of itself, then compiled with all these other ones, can really, it is a bad mix, but anytime you have stress in there. And families whose income is below $15,000 annually. And then compiled with, you have a kid that has behavioral, challenges, you're not getting along with your husband, so again, the multiple factors, it sort of increases the likelihood. Okay, I think we did pretty well generating these. Now what I did here is I sort of, I just broke down the different types of abuse here and some parental indicators here under them. So, physical abuse, and we did touch upon that in the very last training last week, okay? Most often what you might find, again, generally speaking, you might find there typically for physical abuse, there's marital difficulties, history of abuse, substance abuse, harsh discipline. So in terms of their parenting styles, that's something that's probably likely how they were parented, and we mentioned that. Illogical, unconvincing, contradictory explanation of the injury. So we're not getting clearly what happened here. Misperceives the child. So I just put there, for example, they may throw out there it's a demon child, or this is the child from hell, or something to that effect, as a monster. Mental illness, again on there, and conceals the child's injuries. Okay, so then these are some possibilities that are they're actually correlated with physical abuse. Parents that physically abuse. Parents that emotionally abuse, again, what we see kind of correlated with that. History of abuse and substance abuse. Kind of a chaotic home life. Okay, so again, we had to stress there. Apathy, so, not really showing so much feeling, sort of unexpressive with feeling, futility, a feeling of uselessness, that there's nothing they could do to change the circumstances, hopelessness, mental illness or diminished capacity. So that's all ones that sort of tie in for emotional abuse. Sexual abuse, parental indicators. We're going to say this again. History of abuse and or substance abuse. You can see how significant that is. It's on all three of them. You may have an extremely protective or a parent that's jealous of the child. And marital difficulties. So we tend to see those in combination. So any questions about these? Again, these are just, based on cases and data that's been from a multitude of different cases, we can kind of see how it breaks down with some of the risk factors. So, why do parents abuse their children? Okay. Unmet emotional needs, frequent crises, poor childhood experiences, drug or alcohol problems. Anybody disagree with any of these ones? Is there any that we want to add to it that's not here? That maybe wouldn't fall under here?
Can you explain the jealousy of children?
Regarding to the sexual abuse? I think this isn't based from literature. I think it would just be kind of my take on it. That being jealous of the child, why this might actually end up in sexual abuse, I'm not sure, but I definitely have had cases where you have, particularly, maybe they have a first child, and there's so much emphasis placed on the child, and so much time and energy given to the child that relationship Yeah, starts kind of disintegrating. Okay, now why that, and that does happen in relationships, particularly with new and younger parents, but why it necessarily equates to, sexual abuse on the part of that parent, yeah, that I'm not, sure what the literature would say on that, but I definitely have seen cases where, because the child is so much now the center of that person's life, and all their affection and love and attention seems to be focused in on that child. And so it really is rather damaging for the relationship. So they get jealous, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Does anybody want to add anything to that from their own experience?
I wonder if it's not a possession. If you're protective or extremely jealous of that child, you want to possess them in every which way possible, and that would be the ultimate way to possess them, I would wonder.
I have seen with families I had worked before more competitiveness on the parent side, kind of like what you mentioned. Well, now you're spending all the time with the baby, and what do I get time for you?
Yeah, they feel neglected, and I think that definitely occurs. But then, kind of going into, I think what you're saying, that's sort of what JJ I think was looking for. But why would that lend itself necessarily to sexually abusing your own child?
It's got to be the.
Yeah.
I also kind of saw it as, say, a father is abusing his daughter, well, he's going to be very jealous of her having any male friends.
Yeah. And actually, that may be more of what this was about.
That was kind of my first thought. That would be an indication that something.
Yeah. Particularly when you look at the age of some of the, when we're talking about statistically in the age of the children that are abused and all of that. Okay, thank you, Laura. That's a good point. Okay. So getting into why do parents abuse their children? I know you guys kind of generated those lists, but these are typical categories as to why. So let's take a look at these. Unmet emotional needs. Parents who cannot relate well to other adults, they may expect children to take care of them, basically, satisfy their need for love, protection, and self-esteem. And it's interesting when I think of this, there's a case that, God, it might have been maybe, gosh, it might be like 20 years ago now, but I remember this case that I was so upset reading about it because it was a foster child that was placed with a woman. And I think I blocked out on the kid's name because I had it engraved for so long. But anyway, tell me if you heard of this case. It was a tragic, horrible, horrible case where this foster child, who may have been in 3rd grade, 8 or 9, right, placed with this woman who was so overwhelmingly needy that she took the child to these therapists out somewhere, I forget where it was, in Colorado somewhere. We're not traditional therapists, and basically they did, and I had heard of this before, they had done this, what they call birthing session. Did you guys read about this? I was just, I couldn't even talk that day after reading about it. I was so upset. But basically what they did is, what this is, these are people that are very big on attachment as being kind of the center of everything, which we talked about attachment and what that means for mental health. But this, they thought, was an intervention that they wanted to apply to this child. So they wanted to apply this therapeutic intervention to this child because they felt that the child's difficulty lied in not having the proper early attachment with the first object, which would have been the child's mother. And so they wanted to recreate the birthing experience for the child. Are you guys following this? Okay, so in any case, they went to this place, and what they do is they literally cover the child in I don't know if it was a bag, it was some kind of material, but they covered the child in this, and they applied pressure. So they're trying to mimic the birth, contractions, right? Mimic the birth experience. And what happened is the child couldn't breathe. You guys remember this? Is it coming back to any of you? She couldn't breathe and was smothering in there and told them that she couldn't breathe. And told them repeatedly, and she ended up dying, this little girl in there. I mean, they killed her. And so this went to court, and there were all kinds of people coming out in support of this place, and these therapists, and what they've done for their children. But I just thought it was utterly, insane that people would do this type of thing. So that was my reaction to it. But when I saw this, it kind of made me think of this, because when you look at the background of that, the foster mother, she was so emotionally needy. And because the little girl didn't call her mother, that's why she took her to therapy. Because she wouldn't really call her mother and didn't have a real close attachment with her, but she'd already been in multiple placements. So I just kind of throw that out there as a point, point of reference.
How old is she, the baby? The girl.
What was that?
How old is the girl?
Well, the girl died.
How old?
How old was she? She might have been 8.
Yeah, I think she was older, 8, 9 years
8,
old.
9. She was in 3rd grade.
A lot of blankets. They used a lot of blankets too, and like laid on top of
They
her.
laid on her. They smothered her. And they were all big women. There's like 3 of them smothering her. And they recorded it. They recorded it, all of it. So they had all of it there. And there was others around, and the parents saw it, the one that's standing there, and it's just utterly...
They said the baby that she kept trying to get out of it
Yeah.
and shaking because she was suffocating, and
Yeah.
they didn't do anything.
Yeah, it was really horrible. Anyway, I'm sorry to throw that out there, but that sometimes things trigger things in me too when I'm doing these trainings as well. And that's what stuck out when I saw this one. Because when you read the history of this parent, it's like, wow, the child was placed with this foster care parent who was so messed up emotionally, had these unmet needs, that felt that, oh, this kid needs therapy, and takes her to this quack place where they do this, and really, to me, she murdered her child. So that was, anyway, that's that. Let's move on.